Welcome everyone to my Kinich guide. Kinich is the second upcoming 5-star from Natlan, and the first character from the Scions of the Canopy tribe. In this guide, I will go over his kit, and what he does, his playstyles, artifacts and stats, weapons, teams, and finally, constellations. Keep in mind that the information in this video is all pre-release, and there may be some small changes by the time Kinich is out. And without further ado, let's get into his kit. Kinich is a 5-star Dendro damage dealer who works well in burning and burgeon teams. He scales on attack, wields a claymore, and has a crit damage ascension bonus. Kinich's normal attacks deal 3 hits of physical damage and are not a major part of his kit. Being from the Scions of the Canopy tribe, Kinich can use a grappling hook to swing mid-air and grapple towards some objects. Kinich operates some of the same exploration mechanics as the Yumkasaurus. While mid-air, Kinich can also perform a normal attack. His elemental skill is where the grappling hook comes from. Using his elemental skill, Kinich will either swing mid-air or use his grappling hook to hook onto a nearby enemy or an applicable object, entering his Night Soul's Blessing for 10 seconds, starting with 0 points, with a 20-point limit. When Kinich is hooked onto an enemy, he can also freely move around it. If Kinich just swings mid-air, his skill cooldown will be decreased by 60%. You can also hold this skill to aim the grappling hook. While Kinich is in the Night Soul's Blessing, he generates 2 points every second. In this state, he can use either his normal attack or his elemental skill when the number of Night Soul points reaches the maximum. Either damage dealt is considered elemental skill damage. Using his normal attacks, Kinich will fire loop shots, dealing Night Soul aligned Dendro damage and generating 3 Night Soul points. When the Night Soul points reach the maximum limit of 20, Kinich can use his elemental skill to fire off the Scale Spiker cannon, consuming all points and dealing increased Night Soul aligned Dendro damage. This attack can also be held and aimed. Aiming at a different enemy will hook you onto that enemy instead. When Kinich uses Scale Spiker Cannon, a blind spot will be generated around the current enemy. Entering this area will cause it to disappear and grant Kinich 4 Night Soul points. If the grappling hook connection is interrupted, using Kinich's normal attacks in the Night Soul's Blessing can re-establish the connection. This skill has a cooldown of 18 seconds. To put it simply, when you enter the Night Soul's Blessing, you will want to use Kinich's normal attacks to generate Night Soul points and fill the points gauge. Once you reach the maximum limit, you can use his elemental skill attack to deal more damage. In most rotations, you can get around 4 hits of Scale Spiker Cannon. You can gain points even faster through the blind spot area or through his passive. His burst will deal Night Soul aligned AoE Dendro damage, and for 15 seconds, it will deal further AoE damage at intervals. If Kinich's burst is used during the Night Soul's Blessing, the blessing's duration will be increased by 1.7 seconds. This burst deals some decent damage, but it is not enough to justify bursting every rotation, and the Night Soul's Blessing duration extension is not worth it either, as the burst animation will take some field time while Kinich is in the Night Soul's Blessing. This burst has a cooldown of 18 seconds and an energy cost of 70. Kinich's first passive will restore 7 Night Soul points during the Night Soul's Blessing if an enemy affected by burning or burgeon is hit by Kinich's normal or elemental skill attack. This passive will allow you to use Kinich's Scale Spiker Cannon attack more often, dealing more damage in burning or burgeon teams. For the second passive, when a party member triggers a Night Soul burst, Kinich gains 1 stack of Hunter's experience, lasting for 15 seconds, and up to 2 stacks can be gained. When he uses his burst, Kinich will consume all stacks, increasing the damage of his Scale Spiker Cannon by 320% of attack for each stack. This is a decent increase to his damage, but again, not worth building enough energy to burst every rotation. On the other hand, bursting every other rotation will allow you to possibly gain more stacks. Kinich has more utility passives related to Natlan exploration, like the other Natlan characters have. But when it comes to more traditional exploration passives, when you pick up some materials in Natlan, movement speed will be increased by 15% for 10 seconds. Additionally, Kinich will mark the location of some resources unique to Natlan on the minimap. Kinich is a Dendro damage dealer who works well in burning or burgeon teams due to his first passive, which restores Night Soul points, allowing him to use his Scale Spiker Cannon attack more often, dealing more damage. Due to the way Kinich's grappling hook targets one enemy, he is somewhat restricted in single target combat. However, he should be fine in multi-wave content, as he can change his current target. Whether you're playing him in a burgeon or burning team, you don't want to build elemental mastery on Kinich. Burning is a transformative reaction that triggers an aura on enemies affected by Dendro and Pyro, but it doesn't deal much damage due to its low multiplier. Burgeon triggers after Pyro is applied to a Bloom core, but the elemental mastery of your Dendro character isn't important in this case, as the Pyro character will be the one triggering Burgeon. This puts him in a similar position to Emilie. Emilie is an off-field Dendro damage dealer who can deal more damage when nearby enemies are burning. Emilie is a great unit to pair with Kinich, as she applies off-field Dendro and contributes a sizable amount of team damage while being off-field. Whether you're playing Burning or Burgeon, you will also need a Pyro character. To trigger the Burning aura, you don't need consistent off-field Pyro, and even the Pyro from Bennett's burst can be enough. Bennett also buffs attack, which Kinich scales off, and while Kinich already has solid team comps available to him at launch, he may get better as more Natlan characters are released, especially the Pyro Archon, who might pair well with Kinich. Overall, Kinich is a very strong damage dealer who excels in burning or burgeon teams, making him a bit different than the current Dendro damage dealers in terms of team composition, and he might even become stronger as new characters are released. Compared to other Natlan damage dealers, which currently includes only Mualani, both characters are very strong, with potential to become even better. Whether you should go for either is up to you. However, between the two, Mualani is in a better position to become even stronger, especially with the upcoming Shilonen. But again, both are strong and you should go for whoever you like more. Compared to other Dendro damage dealers like Alhaitham, Kinich is more restricted to single target scenarios and works best in burning or burgeon teams. Alhaitham works better in other Dendro teams and is more versatile in that regard. While playing Kinich in a quicken or hyperbloom team is possible, other characters like Alhaitham might be better suited for that role. That said, Kinich still looks like another strong damage dealer. When it comes to Kinich's talent priority, you should first level up his elemental skill, as that's where the majority of his damage comes from. After that, level up his burst. Normal attacks don't need to be leveled, as they don't contribute much to his overall damage. For artifacts, the new Natlan set, Obsidian Codex, is Kinich's best in slot. This set increases damage dealt during the Night Soul's Blessing, and the 4-piece bonus increases crit rate by 40% when at least one Night Soul point is consumed. It's important to note that Kinich doesn't consume points until he fires off his Scale Spiker Cannon attack, so you'll miss out on the 40% crit rate for a few seconds. However, this isn't a significant issue, and the set remains his strongest option. Unfinished Reverie is a close second. This set increases damage bonus by 50% when nearby opponents are burning. Unfinished Reverie is only slightly behind Obsidian Codex, and if you already have good pieces of this set, you can definitely use it instead. Deepwood Memories is usable on Kinich, though it's better suited for another party member. If the character wielding this set hits an opponent with either their elemental skill or burst, the opponent's Dendro resistance will be decreased by 30% for 8 seconds. Having this set on a party member who isn't dealing a large portion of your team's damage, is the best option. For example, in a team with Kinich, Emilie, and Xiangling, using this set on Xiangling would be optimal, since she won't deal as much damage as Kinich or Emilie, especially in a burning team. Marechaussee Hunter can also be used in teams with Furina. While it provides less crit rate than Obsidian Codex, the two-piece effect isn't great on Kinich, as he deals elemental skill damage, not normal or charged attack damage. Golden Troop is another usable set, though you'll miss out on the full elemental skill damage increase when Kinich is on field. Other two-piece combinations with Golden Troop, Obsidian Codex, and two-piece Dendro damage or attack sets are also viable as temporary options. Before going over stats, let's first go over Kinich's energy recharge requirements. Kinich deals decent damage from his elemental burst. Although his skill deals the majority of his damage, and building enough energy recharge to burst every rotation is not worth it. Bursting every other rotation is a better option, as it allows you to gain more stacks for his second passive. Building energy recharge is not necessary for Kinich, especially if you're forgoing crit or attack rolls for it. As for main stats, for your Sands, you'll want attack. Elemental Mastery is not worth building on your Dendro character in a burning or burgeon team. For your Goblet, Dendro damage bonus is the best option, especially if you're using Bennett or receiving a lot of attack buffs. For your Circlet, go for either crit rate or crit damage. The Obsidian Codex set grants 40% crit rate, so if you're using this set, you don't want to go over 60% crit rate. An attack circlet can also be viable, especially if you have C1, where you gain a huge amount of bonus crit damage. When it comes to weapons, Kinich has some decent options, even craftable ones. Keep in mind that this ranking is with Bennett's attack buff, which makes some weapons with low base attack perform better than they otherwise would, and weapons with a lot of attack perform worse. Kinich's best in slot is his signature weapon, Fang of the Mountain King. This weapon has a very high base attack of 740 and increases crit rate by 11%. As for its effect, one stack of Canopy's favor will be granted when the wielding character's elemental skill hits an opponent. When any party member triggers Burning or Burgeon, 3 stacks will be granted. Each stack increases elemental skill and burst damage by 10%, up to 6 stacks, for a total of 60% damage bonus. This is a very strong option for Kinich, but he also has other strong options, including free-to-play weapons. Other 5-star weapons, such as Beacon of the Reed Sea, Verdict, Redhorn Stone Thresher, and Wolf's Gravestone, are also decent options, and not that far behind his signature weapon. Both Battle Pass weapons, Serpent Spine and Talking Stick, are decent options. And while Kinich is one of the few characters who can properly use Talking Stick, Serpent Spine is still a better option due to how much it increases damage. This weapon ranking assumes Serpent Spine is at max stacks, which can be easily achieved by waiting a bit before entering combat. Earthshaker is the craftable Natlan claymore, which you can receive for free via mail. This weapon is Kinich's best option, obtainable for free. Earthshaker increases attack and elemental skill damage when a party member triggers a pyro reaction. Other 4-star weapons are also viable, although they aren't much better than Earthshaker. When it comes to teams, Kinich has multiple viable and strong team comps. One of Kinich's best burning teams will be with Emilie and 2 other pyro units to enable the pyro resonance, further increasing attack. Emilie synergizes well with Kinich, as she also deals a lot of off-field damage when nearby enemies are affected by burning. Xiangling applies and deals a lot of off-field pyro damage. Bennett buffs attack and can also reduce Xiangling's energy recharge cost. Even though Xiangling deals some of the team's damage, using Deepwood Memories on her will be the best option, as she can consistently trigger its effect. Using this set on Emilie or Kinich is not recommended, as it will decrease their personal damage, which contributes to the majority of the team's overall damage. You can also use Dea in this team as she helps with survivability and can use the Deepwood set. Thoma is another option for this team. Since burning applies both a Dendro and Pyro aura onto enemies, you can also trigger other reactions on top of burning, such as quicken or other Pyro reactions. Fischl or even Yaimiko can be used to trigger additional quickens in such a team. You could also run 2 Pyro units, such as Bennett and Xiangling, with your Electro character. Using Geo units is also viable. You could use Zhongli or a more offensive option, like Chiori or Albedo in your last slot. The Geo character in this team would use the Deepwood Memories set, or the character dealing the least damage who can also consistently trigger the effect. You could also go for double Geo, with Bennett as your Pyro character, alongside Zhongli and Chiori, or Albedo and Chiori. Kachina can also be used in these teams, though in teams without another Geo damage dealer, using the Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City artifact set is not as useful, since Kachina is Geo and can't react with Dendro to trigger the set's buff. Using Nahida in place of Emilie is not the best option for burning teams, as she doesn't deal as much damage as Emilie, and her elemental mastery buffs are not particularly useful in these setups. A burgeon team with Furina, Bennett, and Xiangling can potentially be one of Kinich's strongest teams. You can also swap out Xiangling for Dea or Thoma, with Bennett being your healer. Yelan or Xingqiu can replace Furina as well. In this team, you could use another Dendro unit like Nahida or even Baizhu, as their buffs will increase burgeon damage. Aside from these teams, you could also go with quicken or even hyperbloom teams. While they can still be strong, especially hyperbloom, these teams don't bring out as much potential from Kinich as burning or burgeon teams do. And lastly, let's go over Kinich's Constellations. Kinich's C1 increases his movement speed by 30% for 6 seconds after using his grapple hook to swing mid-air, which is a nice exploration bonus. Additionally, it increases his Scale Spiker cannon crit damage by 100%. This is a huge crit damage boost and also makes it viable to use an attack circlet over a crit damage circlet. It's a decent C1, and if you're wondering whether to go for C1 or his signature weapon, Kinich's signature weapon offers slightly more damage. However, while the cost of guaranteeing a weapon is slightly less than a character, your chances of getting the featured character when pulling a 5-star are still higher. C2 decreases enemies' Dendro resistance by 30% for 6 seconds, after being hit by Kinich's elemental skill. It also increases the first Scale Spiker cannon's AoE and damage by 100%. Like many new characters, this is another very strong C2. C3 increases his elemental skill level by 3, and C5 increases his elemental burst level by 3. C4 restores 5 energy to Kinich after using either his normal attack or elemental skill during the Night Soul's Blessing, and increases his burst damage by 70%. This constellation is quite similar to Mualani's C2, which also regenerates energy and buffs burst damage. C6 is Kinich's biggest damage increase. After Kinich fires off a Scale Spiker cannon, it will bounce between nearby opponents once, dealing 700% of Kinich's attack as Dendro damage. This greatly increases Kinich's damage against a single target, but also gives him a bit of AoE. Overall, Kinich has decent constellations with very strong early ones, like his C1 and C2. However, none of these constellations are necessary, and Kinich is strong enough at C0. And that's all for this video. Thank you for making it to the end, and thank you for watching.